We were back to school shopping, gathering the instruments of torture that my teachers would use to slowly bore me to death over the next 9 months. I was nervous and irritable. A better word might be snappish. I'm a sucker for a good word. I was headed to a new school, a middle school. It wasn't that the classes would get harder or that I would get lost in the labyrinth of halls or that I might forget my combination and look derpy just standing there aimlessly spinning the lock, though these thoughts crossed my mind more than once. No, what scared me most was lunch. People talk about nightmares where they're falling or where they are trapped in a burning building or buried alive. But ask any incoming sixth grader with at least 2 forehead zits and a great clips haircut, and he will tell you the prevailing image from his nightmares is standing in the middle of a buzzing cafeteria, tray in hand, desperately looking for somewhere to sit. That was what made me sweat through my sheets at night. Forget the boogeyman. The lunch lady haunted my dreams. Standing in the back to school section with half a dozen other kids and their parents trying to decide between college and wide ruled, Mom could tell there was something bothering me. Mother's intuition. Some people might call that a good thing. I'm not one of them. It was spooky how she could read my mind. Don't be nervous, she said, the corners of her mouth drawn, somehow out frowning me. Easy for you to say, I muttered. You're not the one going to a new school where you know almost no one. It wasn't an exaggeration. I literally knew about 4 people who attended Branton Middle School, and I wasn't friends with any of them. My mom and I had recently moved to a new house, a smaller one, a grand total of 23 miles from the older, larger, more comfortable house I grew up in. It was all part of the separation, one of 1,000 aftershocks that came with my parents' divorce. The old blue house with the white shutters was too much for either my mom or my dad to handle financially. So she found a 3-bedroom in Branton, and he found an apartment in Sarasota. That's Sarasota, Florida. You should be able to find Florida on the map, all right. It's the turd-shaped one, falling into the ocean. No, I get it, Mom said, dropping school supplies into our cart as I checked items off in the printout. She bought store brand everything. Pencils, pens, markers. Even my backpack was the cheapest we could find. Generic black with a little pocket for the phone I didn't own. Mom's salary as an administrative assistant in a dental office didn't cover name brands. Not that I needed Crayolas for middle school. What I needed was someone to trade sandwiches with. Mom put a hand on my shoulder, leaned close so nobody would hear us. It's hard starting over, trust me, I know, but it'll all be all right. You'll find your people. That's exactly how she said it, your people, like I was a prophet preparing to gather my flock. At least she didn't say peeps. My mother never tried to be cool. It's one of the things that made her cool sometimes. I grunted at her anyways. Give me that look all you want, Eric, but it will happen. It's instinctual, inherited from our prehistoric days. We are wired to form groups. Otherwise, we would have gone extinct eons ago. It will be hard, but you will make it. That's another thing about Mom. She doesn't sugarcoat it for you. She tells you everything straight up, and her hugs are fierce and quick, like the one she gave me just then. It will be awkward at first, but it will get better. You find your people, and you make your tribe, and you protect each other from the wolves. That's middle school? I asked her. She gave me a sad kind of smile. That's just life, she said. And she threw 3 packs of off-brand sticky notes in the cart and pushed on to the next aisle. I stood there by the Elmer's glue display, imagining my body being ripped apart by ravenous beasts. In the middle of the school cafeteria, no less, with everyone around me pointing and laughing, Mom was smart and I loved her. But she didn't always know the best thing to say to a guy. But you find your people, sure, but it was the wolves that I was worried about. Ruby Sandals wasn't one of the people I'd eventually found, but I still felt bad for her as Mrs. Shears escorted her out of the room. The big ham was surely going to eat her alive. I knew what she said by the end of fourth period. We all did. It's not difficult. I'm sure that's the whole reason the internet was invented, to make it easier to spread gossip. I know what Stephen Curry eats for breakfast. I know what the president thought about the new Marvel movie. I know how many ping pong balls a man can fit inside his mouth at one time. You don't even have to know where to look. Just be patient enough, and eventually somebody will tell you, whether you care or not. Ruby's message was passed around, jumping from phone to phone like skipping stones, each of us gawking at it in turn. The kids all knew before the parents. We probably even knew before Ruby's mom did. There was no way to take it back. You can't erase what everyone else has seen, and you certainly can't stop the gossip train once it has gathered steam and rocketed out of Branton Middle School Station. The whispering was like static in the halls. "She actually said that?" Bench said it with a whistle. We were walking together to lunch the day Ruby's phone was taken from her. It was the four of us. Dee Dee with his Lord of the Rings lunchbox that wasn't retro enough to be cool yet, and Wolf with his brown paper sack that was, me wearing Bench's last pair of Nikes and a t-shirt that said, "Save the whales, they make good leftovers." My uncle sent it to me for my birthday. He's kind of demented, but he always remembers, which is nice. Bench was leading the way. We always let him take point. "Technically, she typed it," I said. I don't think you'd ever hear her say those words out loud. I tried to imagine Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz dropping the kinds of bombs that Ruby did in that text message. Some of the things she wrote would have made the Wicked Witch turn white. "She's going to get suspended," Wolf said. "Or worse," Dee Dee added. "I still can't believe she said that about him." Bench shook his head. The him was the big part of the problem, and one of the reasons Ruby was sure to get sent home this time. It wasn't some guy she had a crush on, or some other kid who badmouthed Ruby behind her back. The him was Mr. Jackson, an adult, a teacher. He apparently gave Ruby an F on her last science test because he suspected her of cheating. In response, she thumbed a long rant to her friends, calling him several choice names, and saying that he could just go kiss a certain part of her backside, with 3 exclamation points. She had only sent the text to 2 people, but it didn't matter. Friends have friends. The message made the rounds, and Ruby was going to have a hard time passing science this year. I saw Mr. Jackson in the hall. He looked bad. "All sweaty and red," Dee Dee said. "He always looks like that," I said. "Yeah, but he looked like he was going to have a heart attack." He always looks like that too." Mr. Jackson was not a small man, as many of the crude drawings in the boys' bathroom could attest to. He was a few 100 pounds, much of it pillowing around his center like a monster truck tire. One of the unfortunate F words Ruby used in her text was fat. "Definitely expelled," Dee Dee said. "You just can't say those kinds of things. Not in school. Not about a teacher." "Why not, though?" Bench asked. "I mean, she's entitled to her opinion, like constitutionally." I gave Bench a look. He wasn't defending her. He wasn't friends with Ruby any more than I was. He was only playing devil's advocate. We learned about the Bill of Rights in social studies earlier this year from a droning Mr. Hostler. I didn't pay too close attention. Most of the amendments only seemed to matter if you got arrested, which wasn't in my foreseeable future. Mom would kill me. Although Bench's comment made me wonder if Mr. Jackson could have Ruby arrested for defamation of character or something. Verbal abuse? Assault with a deadly text? The First Amendment says nothing about reasonable consequences for sending texts calling your science teacher a... Dee Dee tried to muster the courage to repeat what he'd read, but it was too much for him to say out loud. He wasn't exactly a rule breaker. None of us were. We weren't total suck-ups either. We just tried to keep our noses clean. We flew under the radar. It was one of the many things that were key to survival. I'm pretty sure it just kept you from being arrested for saying what you think. Doesn't mean you can't get in trouble. I think she was better off keeping her opinion to herself, Wolf had said behind me. Wolf, the voice of reason. We counted on him for that. Just like we counted on Dee Dee to find drama in everything. And Bench to keep us from getting beat up. And counted on me. I'm not sure what we counted on me for. Mark my words, this isn't over, Dee Dee divined. Somehow or another, it's going to come back and bite us all in the you-know-what. Are you going to roll for it, I asked? Or are you suddenly psychic? I'm telling you, Dee Dee said, stuff like this doesn't go unnoticed. Nothing's going to happen, Wolf countered. Nothing ever changes around here. I nodded, sure he was right. I'd never seen Wolf get flustered over much of anything, even the little shoves and digs that come along with being in middle school, the needling comments and the sidelong sneers. Wolf took them in stride, and he certainly took enough of them. Bench called him composed, which made a lot of sense when you thought about it. Sometimes that meant that you didn't know exactly what Wolf was thinking, not if he was being quiet, which is kind of a default for him. Unlike Dee Dee, who might as well have billboards above his head spelling out his feelings for anyone who cared to know, which was usually the three of us, and not always that many. I'm serious, Dee Dee said. You wait and see. We're all going to pay for this. We gave him a playful shove, and we pushed him into the cafeteria. Bench and I waiting in line. Dee Dee and Wolf headed toward our usual seats. The same seats we'd sat in for a couple of years now. Just the four of us. My people. The ones I found. The ones I counted on for everything.